Well, I just got me a new toy in today. It's from Onan, Energy Command 30. And in doing my research, I couldn't find a video of anyone installing this thing, so I figured I'd make one. But what this does, I pulled up here on the website too at Onan. Most all your newer RVs has this feature built in to where that it will automatically start and stop your generator, under certain conditions when they're met. It'll monitor your batteries. As the battery starts to get low, below a certain voltage, it'll automatically start the generator, bring it back up, and then automatically shut the generator down. If you have your air conditioner set for a certain temperature and it falls below that, it'll automatically start the generator, run the air, and then shut itself off to satisfy that. It's got all kinds of neat features built into it like that. It can be, even looking here on their website, it tells you, figure at least 8 hours for install. Because you see on the back here, you got a 16-pin connector. You got quite a few wires. Now, if you happen to order one of these, you got to be sure and order you wiring harness, or this little pigtail. This is the short one. There's the part number for it. They make another one that's like maybe 20 foot long or something, but I have no need for that. So I can just run my own separate wires that I need to. And it does come with a good install manual here. But first thing I'm going to do is get rid of these staples, because that's going to be a pain. I'm going to put it in this binder so I can better look through it. So I'm going to sit down, read the manual, highlight a few things, and get a plan of attack. And I'll try to walk you through it. See ya. Okay, well, it's about time to get installing this thing. So I'm here in the RV trying to decide where I'm going to place things. So I've kind of already got this box almost filled up with my my inverter, and of course other things I've added here where I want to monitor where's my switch at. It tells me the voltage of the house batteries. That's the little device I've added. I've added these things. So I've filled up a lot of space here. And so what I've decided to do is move this item, which is this right here, the current load meter. I'm going to remove it down below. And of course, I've already asked permission from the wife that she said yes, it's okay to cut a hole. So that'll go right here, nice and pretty. And then I'll cut this out just a little bit more, and I'll install this. So that'll be more eye level, because I'll be using this a whole lot more than I will that device. So I got to do a little more cutting, and you see I got a truckload of wires to deal with. We'll get into the next step. So I'll do a little whittling and get this mounted, and we'll see how it turns out. That was the easy part, I must say. Wasn't hard at all. So now comes the hard part, somewhat. Is hooking up all this pile of wires. I forget how many I got, 16 maybe. So, and hooking them all up to the right location. So now it's time to get the book out, do some thinking. Got to do some figuring, because I got to tie in the thermostats and batteries and AC sources and all kinds of fun things. So this is going to be the good part. Okay, you can see where I've got it mounted now. And I took the old device and mounted it down below. Got that done. And so now I'm starting my plan of attack as far as wiring goes. I got my 16 wires all labeled up. And getting access to everything. Oh, you can see I made this little shelf here because I was having troubles dealing with this panel, keeping it sturdy while I could attach and detach things. So I screwed this little piece of plywood in there, and it gives me a nice little shelf. And then I screwed this right there, so it's pretty sturdy. And it gives me a way I can leave things hooked up and test back and forth, and not have to worry about nothing getting shorted out. And of course the manual, I've already read the manual cover to cover and highlighted particular items I want to be aware of, and I'm just going through here wire by wire and getting it all hooked up, and we'll just see how this process goes and see what kind of problems I run into. and I'll keep you updated. Okay, I got my first small section done here. And I got the wiring kind of done in sections, like, because the first set is your generator set connections. Then you got your power voltage connections. Then you got your AC shore power, and where you got your air conditioning to deal with. So anyway, I've got the generator part mostly done, and what I've done here, and yours may or may not be the same, but what I did as I disconnected things, because on the back side here you see, this was our start and stop switch and our hour meter for the generator. And we've got a total of 4 wires right here that we've connected up going into the new device. And then here we got yellow, which is the start wire, the brown, that is the stop signal, and then the center wire here, that's the ground. So whenever a ground is, it either ground the brown wire, you ground the yellow wire, it's either going to start or stop the generator. And so I've labeled everything before I removed it, so I knew what it is. But also, future-wise, I'm thinking ahead of time, if some point in time down the road this little box device fails on me, I can quickly unplug. That's why I made these quick connects. I can unplug those, plug them right back up, and start it like it always used to. So that's just sort of a fail-safe on my end. So I got this part done, but there's my first little hiccup I realized is when I got to wire number 6, I don't have a wire number 6, because you see this is my connection here that Winnebago put in the wires, and but I've only got 4 wires, so I'm looking. There's another wire that I got to run from the generator that gives me a signal. Like on your front on the dashboard, I got to start generator switch, but I've also got a little green light. If there's an error, it'll flash the code. If you, for whatever reason, you have a no start condition or some kind of failure, it gives you different codes. So I got to run another wire up to feed that. It's one of these labels here. I forget what it's called, some sort of signal wire, but it's in these pile of notes. But that's one I'm going to have to run and add to it later. But I'm going to go on to the next step. We're going on to the power wires, and I got some fuses to add, I believe. And I was going to mention too, because I'm using these connectors, if you're going to do this project, be sure to get you a good pair of crimpers like this. Don't rely on something like this to crimp your wires. And also, if you ever noticed how it says it's insulated and non-insulated. So when you crimp, be sure to use the correct section of the crimper. So for these type of connections, you want to use the crimp here in the rear for the insulated type. If it's non-insulated, then you use the other one. Because if you use this on this type of connection, you're going to pierce a hole in it. And then you lose your insulation ability. You could have a short later on. There's yet. Okay, on to the power connections, because this is the connection that's going to feed my new control box. And they want you to have a 5-amp fuse, because they warn you do not put the fuse in until you're done with all your wiring. Of course, dealing with an RV, I want to make absolutely sure I got a solid connection. There's no chance of it coming loose. So, of course, here's the wire coming off the harness. I've sorted my connection. I trimmed it off, and then after that I'm going to, well, here it is. I put one of these crimp-ons, so it's going to be soldered and crimped. So with the 2 connections, I don't have to worry about anything coming loose in the future. And something I've done different, because I was thinking about, I've had to pick up a 12-volt source somewhere, and I thought I was going to have to run a wire all the way back to the battery. And I remembered something just below this. I have this old safety alert. It was a pain in the butt. It was always going off, causing false alarms, and they didn't last very long. Just every couple of years, you'd have to replace them, and they run on 12 volts. So I eliminated that and installed this style here, this kitty, which runs on 110 volts, and it runs off my inverter. And you see, I got it plugged up right here on the inverter side. So anyway, I had this spare power source, and that's what I've done to get my sorter here. I'm going to crimp it, so that's going to be my power source for the new Onan auto start. And then this wire is in turn backed up by a breaker, which here's LP detector. So I got to relabel that to remind myself in the future. This actually now powers the Onan auto start. So thought I'd show you. Okay, well, now it's time to do a little fishing. So I got to get these wires down to the battery to monitor the battery and different things. And so here, this is a 38J. Every RV is a little bit different. So here's what I've had to do. You see my little yellow piece of fiberglass, got a little hook on it. So I've got that wire hooked on and in. I've already ran it through the floor that direction to the battery. And let's just see if I get lucky enough to get this to work. Here. Come on, baby. There you are. Awesome. Alright. Wasn't no problem at all. So now I just gotta run it up through the wall. Get that mess of wires up there. I'm gonna show you what this thing is. These are great tools to have. Because my first deal was getting the wire under the floor. And that went pretty smooth too. Show you how I did that. That was right up through here. So the same way I ran that little rod way up through the floor, hooked the wire and pulled it through this way. But no problem. Let me show you and you get these things at Harbor Freight, whatever thing's called. You put all these together, it goes up to 33 feet long. Fiberglass wire running kit. So great thing to add to your toolkit. I believe so. There you go. There's another tip for you. Now I'm going to get to hooking up the wires. Well, it's 2:30 in the morning and making progress. I've been working on a solid, just off and on. But I've got to, where have I got to? I've got the power and voltage connections all finished now. And I'll show you what I did to accomplish that and how I ran my wires. Of course, here's my wires running down underneath. That one I just fished down under the RV and got it to come out by the batteries where I need them to be. I sorted my connections, then I crimped them, got all that done. And I will take you down here and show you what I did. Looking for my flashlight because I'm going to need that. And I can't, hang on, let me find my flashlight. Okay, here we go, find my flashlight. So under here, here's that wire I ran. Got it right here. And one of the wires I tapped out, and I'm going, this is my engine start battery because I installed a solar system and I needed to move my engine start battery. And this is where, and of course I labeled everything. It's the Onan sensor. So this will monitor the voltage that's in the engine battery. If it gets below 12 point something volts, it will automatically start the generator and charge it back up. So, because I don't have any fuses in yet, that's the last step. So I got that one in there. And then I've also got my other two, like, well, I got this is the house batteries. You see I got 4 6-volts here. I got 510 amp hours. And so I got that, still no fuse. Got that tied in here. And there's one more wire here, that's the for the safety start. I was going to explain that a little bit. That's where I got my flashlight. So I can show you here. Move these wires out of the way. Okay, right there. This is where I've tied into. That right there. Because there's a safety aspect to this you have to have installed. The situation could be, say for instance, you put your RV in a garage or had it at a repair shop, and if it didn't get automatically switched to manual mode, if it stayed in automatic mode, then your RV in the middle of the night could just start up if the batteries got low. And if you was in an enclosed garage, that wouldn't be good with all the fumes and stuff. So they've got this incorporated in. What this wire does, this wire goes up into the control box, and it's always looking for a change of state. It's looking for 12 volts to either be there or not be there. Whenever it changes, it automatically takes the start command center, it switches it back to manual mode. So if you put it in manual mode, and this wire ties directly into your ignition switch. So the ideal is whenever you start or move your RV, it's going to go back to manual mode. So there's no possibility of you starting your RV up, pulling it into a garage, and it staying in auto mode. It will then assume you've moved it somewhere, possibly into a garage. It will switch it back to manual mode, so it will not automatically start. And this particular solenoid, because this one here is your disconnect. And I've got my battery flashlight. There we go. Of course, that one is your whole house disconnect. What this solenoid does is tie both the house batteries and the engine start battery together. It comes in handy in different ways. Of course, when you're driving down the road, if you don't have a solar system, when you turn on the ignition switch, this wire gets energized, which the solenoid slides up and connects these two heavy wires together. So that way it connects the engine start battery to the house batteries. So as you're driving down the road, the alternator on the engine is now charging up the house batteries. And a little story, 4 or 5 years ago, not long after I got this thing, I see the date, actually in 2014, I see the date on top of it. We was on a trip and we was going down the road, and the wife's laptop died even though she was plugged into the inverter, and I didn't. So it doesn't make any sense. We're driving down the road, it should be charging up. So when we got to the campground, I got to troubleshooting it, and this was faulty. And what was odd about it is it would actually click. You could send 12 volts to it. You could hear it clicking, but it would not make contact. And so it became pitted over time. It would not make. There's a little copper disc in there. It wouldn't make contact and connect the two batteries together. So I grabbed one on Amazon, they're like $15 or something like that. Put it in there. It's been working ever since. That's why I got the date on there, since 2014. So if that happens to you, you know what to look for. At least in the 38J, this is where it's located. There's plenty to learn when you get an RV, find out where all the stuff is and how everything works and what it does. So now my next step, what is my next step? I had to tap into my ground wire. Oh yeah, that's right, for the safety. So that's where I went down in here because I've sorted. I haven't crimped it yet. This is the old connection to the LP gas, the old monitor I got rid of. And I got a video on this on my channel explaining how I did that and why. And it works out really well. I did it a couple years ago. I don't get no more false alarms. This kitty 110 volt system works a whole lot better as long as you got an inverter. So I got that done, and I just don't like much now. Okay, I know what it is. My next step is tying in my air conditioners. So I've already checked this. Because this is all 12 volt systems. So I turned the air on a while ago, took my test light, and found that the yellow wire is the wire that sends a command to the compressor to come on. So I got to tap into this wire, and it will go into the back of this, and then that'll tell the generator to start when it calls for air, when the thermostat calls for air. So I'll get that wire fixed up and almost ready for a test run. Okay, now it's down to installing a tricky wire. This is the wire going to the thermostat in the bedroom. So I gotta come down through here from the top, down through that hole, through this hole, around the bend through that little notch there, come here, drop down underneath, and eventually I'll get to that wire that's down below. So here you can see I got my fish tape here. You see I've fished it through. So I'll tie a wire to it and pull it all the way back through around, and here's gonna be my wire. I'll run it back down in there. So that's what I'm up to this evening. Okay, well, just like the front thermostat, I need to get a hold of this yellow wire on the rear thermostat. So let me show you back here. And remember, don't tell my wife what I've done to her poor RV. I know it's a disaster, but I'll get it all put back together. So to find out what wire I need, because I took the thermostat apart, there's my yellow wire, and I followed the connector, and then here, now this is one thing I love about Winnebago, is they label, every wire has its own individual part number. So the wire I'm trying to track down is a 150 45401 HDD. So if I find that wire, then I can just tap right into it without going all the way from there to here, which would be a long haul. So I started tracing this down. I know it went down through the closet underneath, so I'll show you where it comes out and how I did this. Alright, so the wire comes out in this harness right here, goes around, and I opened up the harness, it's back in there. So then I see it goes up and around down this frame rail, so then I followed that. Okay, around we go. So, and here we are. And right there's the wire I need. 150 45401 HDD. And here's my little brown wire I've just run down through here, and there's the opening through the bathroom sink. That's what I've come down through. So I didn't have to run it near as far. So I'm going to go and carefully strip this wire back, solder this wire onto it, and tape it up well, tuck everything back up into the harness. So then I will have my connection to the rear air conditioner, and I'll about have this wrapped up shortly. Well, good news, good news. It is working now. It's doing everything I want. But of course, like any RV project, I had a hiccup. And I'm going to try to explain to you what I ran into, because you may run into the same thing. Of course, going by our book once again, hooking up the connections, because we got wire number 1, wire number 2, wire number 3, the start wire. We had this number 4 we don't use, because I don't, because this is for a unique, I think this is for basement air. I have the Coleman mocks on the roof, so this is a unique air system that uses a little bit different way. It engages the air conditioning, so I didn't need that wire at all. Then we had, which this will be my 4th wire, but there should be a 5th wire, because one wire, is like switch B plus from generator. That more or less, as soon as the generator starts, it gives you a 12-volt signal, which more or less runs the hour meter. So you have a constant, correct hours of your runtime on the generator. The other wire here is your status light. Makes the light flash, flashes the codes. If you have some sort of generator failure, it'll flash out a code. Then you use your manual to decipher the code. Either, if it's low oil or some sort of breaker failure or anything. There's like 40 to 50 different codes this thing can generate. So, but Winnebago, in their wisdom, they only give me 4 wires, so I was missing a wire. So I called Onan, told him my situation. They hooked me up with Grover Simpson. He's the EC30 guru. So I talked to him. Of course, he told me what I need to do is look at the harness and tap into, I'm going to get this right. He told me to tap into J2E. Right here's the printout from the manual. I'll take you out. I'll go outside here in a second to show you this. J2E. He told me to, wait a minute, was it J2F? I may be getting that. Let me make sure I get this right. Okay, let me rephrase. He told me to make sure I need to run a separate wire to J2F to get my local status, which equals the codes. He told me to run a wire to J2F. So I went outside, looked at my harness, my connector. I realized wire J2F was already being used. And I traced the wire, and that is this wire here, the red wire, which originally went right up here to the hour meter, to run the hour meter. So that kind of threw me off. So I called him the next day and explained to him what I found. He said, well, Winnebago kind of technically hooked it up wrong. It will still work, but maybe there's a slim possibility you might not get true hours on your runtime, because it's maybe not a constant 12-volt source. Because from the factory, it was tapped into the J2F when he said it should have been tapped into J2E. That's the local run switch B+. That's for the hour meter. The J2F is what gives us our codes. So I had to I still had to run another wire, but I had to run it to the J2F wire, so I could get my so that way I can get my codes. Let me show you what I mean by that. Originally, when I just hooked it up with 4 wires, everything would start and run, the air conditioner, everything would operate and activate by automatic mode. So it was cool, but I wasn't getting any readouts as far as history, when it stopped, why it started, any kind of failures. It wasn't giving me that information because I didn't have that fourth wire hooked up. Now that I got that whole fourth wire hooked up, it gives me some good information like this. See, like it shows you like the last 9 things that took place. Let's see here, let's go back here. Like you can see here, like manually started, that's where I manually started the generator. Here you see the 9 processes ago, I guess you call it, auto run HVAC. It automatically started on HVAC, call for cooling. Then I manually stopped it, and let me see, we had another fault too, low oil pressure. Now see, I did this as a test. I want to make sure it was working. So I went out there to the oil pressure sending unit, unplugged it, and run a jumper wire to ground. So that way I could force a fault, because I wanted to make sure it was giving me all the information it's supposed to. So this is what I've been looking for now. It does everything I want. So now if I have a fault, you know, if we have low oil pressure, instead of just having a flashing light, they got to decode. All you gotta do is look at the screen. It's going to tell me exactly what it was. You know, low oil pressure, over voltage, trip breaker, whatever. I don't know, out of 40, 50 codes, there's a lot of different codes that will. I think even if we run out of fuel, it tells you that. Or a faulty fuel pump gives you a lot of easy information. So I like that part. So let me show you what I had to do to make this happen. Of course, I just dropped another wire down through here under the shower stall, down through the floor. And let's go underneath here. Okay, I'm in the basement area now. You can see here that this is the wire that I had tapped into that taps into the rear thermostat. Got that done. And then this big heavy black wire, this is the one that's going to the generator. Now on this wire, you can see it's much heavier insulation. It's still a small gauge, like it's probably like a 14 or 16 gauge wire. It's kind of small, but the jacket is really thick and heavy because I wanted something heavier because I knew it was going to be exposed in the weather, and I didn't want to rely on a smaller wire that might get nicked or damaged because I know from where it reaches the generator. And this wire I used is actually 12 volt outside lighting wire. It's designed to be direct barrel underground, so it's really thick. So I ran it through there, and it goes right over that little wall into this other bay. Around the corner, around we go. All right. That was kind of tricky, but I was able to get it in there somewhere. I don't even know how I did it now, but I crawled up in that hole and I poked it through that plastic box. I drilled a little bitty hole, stuck it through there, and then I dropped down underneath to the generator. Okay, and then you can see I run it through here, through the wire loom, and here's where I tapped into the harness. Where's she at? There it is. Let me get this out for you better. Now see, if you look closely, that light is almost too bright. Every one of those white wires that's coming out of the generator, they have numbers on them. J2, F, J2, 3, and each wire does a different thing. So that's where I had to tap into. You see that black wire? That's the wire I had to tap into. That is my signal wire that gives me the codes and flashes the light. So I got that all done, and I just got to tidy up my wiring, get the wire loom all done. And here's what I did to test it. Remember I told you I wanted to create a fault to make sure it's working. So in fact, anytime you wanted to do this, it wouldn't be probably a good idea just to make sure your switch is working, or the wiring is working anyways. If you ground this, put this wire to ground, I just got this little jumper here, it will force it to come on because the engine's going to think you got no oil pressure. And so that way I was able to induce a fault, and I know that part's working. Heaven forbid you drive down the road and knock a hole in your oil filter because it hangs below here with a rock. Lose all your oil pressure, blow up an engine. That'd make for a bad day for sure. And you can see where I poked the wire through right there. And I'll put me some polyurethane sealant around that, seal it really good. And I poked it through at the bottom. Got that part all done. Okay, back inside again. So I everything's working the way I want it to. I've got all my wires labeled. There's a total of 4 wires I did not use. 2 of them being the, what's it called, SP Sense. That's shore power sense. You know how that works. It explains it in the manual a little bit. Your SP Sense wires here. And of course what that's for is you tap into it, so if you're at a campground and by chance the campground loses power, so you lose AC power and you have pets in your RV, well, and the RV is calling for air conditioning, then the generator will start and keep the RV cool while you're gone and while the campground has no power. I don't have pets, so I don't really see a need to have that. I can always run it if I want to. Of course, with that, you need to, it's best, according to the guy I talked to at Onan, to tap into before the transfer switch. Now, I should show you what that is. Alright, so if you have pets and you want to have this system work where if a campground lost AC power, lost shore power, and it would automatically start and keep the pets cool, you would need to open up this box, put in, tap into the AC side with a 12 volt transformer. So it stepped down 120 volts down to 12 volts, and then run 2 wires up to the EC30 module. So that way it would tell it when you lost power, and it would automatically start. But at the moment I'm opting not to do that. Something I may do in the future if I have a need for it, but at the moment I don't see the need. Oh, and by the way, you know, if you happen to do use this, get your that source, you want to absolutely make sure you never send any 120 volts into this module. You'll destroy it. So it's only 12 volt signals this thing can handle. So think about what you're doing and be careful when you do it. So I'm about ready to put all this back together. I've got one thing I've also done in here. Think about this wiring. Some of it I didn't like because I noticed it was tugging on these components. So I've pulled these wires up, and you can see I've added zip ties back here to get the weight off these wires. You can see how, like, Winnebago's went in here and put these big clamps to keep the weight from tugging on these connections. So I've done that with several of these wires, and even the couple of wires I ran. So everything's kind of nice and relaxed. When I'm going down the road, I don't have to worry about the weight of this heavy harness tugging and pulling on these connections, because you definitely want a good connection on everything. So I guess I'm going to kind of wrap this up, put it back together, then I'll kind of go through the settings a little bit, how that works, and try to put this RV back together. Good grief, I got to get this back together before the wife sees it. I'll be in trouble. Okay, I'm coming back here. I may not have explained this well enough earlier. Remember I was talking about, see, this is the Winnebago side, the Winnebago plug. There's only 4 terminals in there. Okay, here's Onan's side. You see we got a whole bunch of wires. So we got 4, 5, 6, we got 7 connections there. And you see the one I cut off, that's the one I had to, that's the signal wire. Because I didn't have a pin in here that I could use, I had to cut the wire and attach it right here, run that wire all the way up. I just wanted to explain that a little bit better, because there's all kinds of signal wires coming out of this generator. But Winnebago only choose to use 4. But now we're using the 5th one and getting more data. That's the way I like it. Okay, Energy Command 30 is all installed. Set up, it works great. I really like this upgrade. And also you can see I have cleaned up my mess a little bit. So the RV looks much better than what it did. Back through there, got all the crud I picked up off the floor and all my tools put away. And I did this with all my notes and wiring schematics and stuff. I've made me a nice little book here, everything highlighted. So that way in the future, if I need to refer to it, I've got that here. Just a little bit about how it works. Of course, the manual shows you step by step everything you do. I mean, once you get it wired in, you know, it goes through the steps to, it's got like a self-test. It goes through, make sure the safety part is working. You set up what type of safety device you want. I set it up through the ignition switch. You set it up through the parking brake. Depends on if you have a 5th wheel or a Class A, what you're putting it in. There's different ways to set it up. You also can verify the voltage. well, you can set the voltage of when the generator starts. I started a generator a while ago and the CO2 thing's telling me. Let me see if I can shut that thing up. Okay, that's better. Don't have it beeping. One thing about it, sure, it's sensitive. I just started it just let it run a few seconds, and it picked up that exhaust smell. What was I talking about? Okay, but yeah, the batteries and stuff. Let's see what kind of buttons we got. See, some of my battery level. That's the house batteries, 12.5 volts. The engine starting battery is 12.2. Service 150 hours. There's my hour meter, because you can manually, before you unhook everything, see, there's my old meter. Be sure to write down your hours so you can put them into the new meter. Let me see what else we got. Now, there's like setup and info, system info, view log. I really like that. That's neat. How it gives you all the different logs of different stuff, of what took place. Like I think the last 9 issues. Even if there's an error message, it'll pop up and read out to you the error message if you ran out of fuel, or there's some sort of over voltage, like 40, 50 different messages it can give you. And then there's the auto start ignition, the type of safety device you want to set it for. But anyway, all that's in the book, step by step, says how to do that. But if you want to, there's manual mode. If I want to put it in auto start, I go enter for auto. So we got auto. I'm unplugged from AC right now, and I'm going to turn on the air conditioning. You can see it's 80 degrees in the RV. Heard the thermostat tick. And in just a second, it will start. Here she goes. And in a few more seconds, the air conditioning will start. Because it takes the transfer switch just a little bit to kick over. Any day now. See those digital readouts kick in. Okay, there's another click. There she goes. Okay, now the front air just came on. And then once it's satisfied, I could, if I told it to kick off, it said it simply too. So if I raise it up to shut off at like 80, whatever it is now. Of course, the thermostat will shut off, but the generator will continue to run another 10 minutes before it actually shuts down. But that's just the way it's designed to do, I guess. But all in all, I like it really well. I think you'll like it too. Looking forward to some better boondocking. So this way, when we turn the air on at night, the generator don't have to run all night long. It just has to run long enough to cool the RV, keep the RV at a proper temperature, and to keep the batteries charged. Anyway, hope you have good luck getting yours installed. I think you'll really like it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.